This is We the Sales Engineers Podcast, show 32.
Welcome to We the SEs Podcast, the show for sales engineers by sales engineers with your host, Ramsey Majaba. Ramsey doesn't believe that salad is food. He says that it's what food eats. Interesting.
Hello, folks. Thank you for joining me today for show number 32. My name is Ramsey Majaba. In case this is the first time listening to this podcast, welcome. And this is a podcast that I started because we sales engineers don't have any resources for us. So this is a resource for sales engineers by sales engineers. And in order to create this resource, I decided to interview a whole bunch of people with the main focus being sales engineering. Today's guest is Adam O'Brien, and Adam is in a unique spot where he comes with an English literature degree, not a technical degree, and he's worked in marketing before. So we will discuss how that's helped him in his career. And before we start, the quick tip of the day is on the main page of the website, wetheSalesEngineers.com. You will find a couple of downloadable files. I put them up as a resource. I'll be working on more. So if you have ideas that you want me to work on, sign up to the newsletter. We'll start a conversation and you can tell me what you guys want. But for now, what I have is one file, which is a guide to write an awesome resume, in my humble opinion. And another one is for meeting notes template. And that's the template that I personally use when I meet with customers. And it's helped me keep track of so many action items, whatever objections the customer may have. And, that will help me in a later date while I'm trying to do a demo or a presentation. And also help me keep track of all the people that I meet, because as sales engineers, we meet a lot of folks that we don't interact with often. Some we do, some we don't. So this helps me keep track of them and what they do, what they look like, at least in my mind. So check them out and download them if you feel they could be useful to you. Now, let's get into the show. Good morning, Adam. Welcome to the show.
Hey, good morning, Ramsey. How are you doing today?
I am doing well. Heart rate is a little bit up for different reasons, but I'm settling down. And thank you for joining me after catching your daughter's cold. I'm happy you're up on your feet now.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm glad we could finally connect here. It's always disastrous when you have a 7-month-old who's super cute but sick and you can't help but stay away.
She's 7 months old.
7 months old, so she's
wow.
she's something else.
So you're not sleeping either.
No, she's since about the first week we brought her home. She's been on a schedule. We've been very intentional about trying to get 8:00 bedtime, and she sleeps usually most all the way through the night. Wakes up around 6:45, 7 a.m. every morning with a smile, and that's how I start my day. So I count myself extremely blessed.
I just want to hang up on you right now. This is the second time today I want to hang up on you. All right. I don't know if anybody cares listening to this because this is an SE show, but my 8-month-old just started sleeping, only waking up once a night. So.
Man, so you're finally getting a little bit of shut-eye.
Well, so in Canada we have mat leave. So my wife is on an 18-month mat leave. So
okay.
I cannot breastfeed. I tried, did not work. She's doing most of that. So I'm also blessed in the sense that she's a superwoman and she's taking care of that. All right.
That's great.
All right, enough of the lovey-dovey stuff. All right. So who are you and why are you on my show?
Yeah, it's a great question. Well, my name is Adam, and I am a sales engineer. So I actually work for a company called Accruit, based out of Austin, Texas, and where I am responsible for one of their software titles underneath their umbrella called Maintenance Connection, which is really a computerized maintenance and management software platform, or a CMMS platform, where to give you the broad idea of what that is, it really helps large organizations and enterprise level customers track and manage their physical assets, whether that be a light bulb all the way up to huge extruders for manufacturing organizations, or pulsometers for medical devices and the like for hospitals. So we range over a whole host of different what we like to call verticals or of the likes. And so I am responsible as one of a team of two, or actually three now. We just hired on a new team member to not only deliver demonstrations and demos for prospective and existing customers, but then also we have a whole host of other things that we take care of and get our hands into, which I'm sure we'll probably cover in the course of the next time together.
Yeah, sounds good. So just a quick follow-up. So your 3 SEs, how many account managers do you support?
Yeah, so right now we have a team of 5. And so we are broken into 5 territory managers across the greater Northern America portion of the world. And then also we have a few existing customer-based account executives. So we call those client account executives. Right now we have 2 of those. We're looking to hire a third. And then we also have a facilities sales rep. So he's responsible for coordinating the purchase and the sales and the customer needs for our service providers. So those who are purchasing our software and then using that as a platform to provide a service to outside organizations.
All right. So a total of 5, or did I? Because I kind of.
Oh, geez, yeah. No, I think we're climbing. I think 8 or 9 total that. Or yeah.
Okay. All right. So well, that's not a bad ratio, 8 to 3.
No, it's not too terrible at all.
Okay. And from my discussion with you, which you made abundantly clear that you kind of have a hybrid role, and usually when we say hybrid SE, that usually means SE and salesperson in one. But you're kind of different. Mm-hmm. How is that?
Yeah, it's interesting. So my background comes from starting with Maintenance Connection and in the greater software kind of industry as a support engineer. So I did the support thing for a few bit. Took over and helped lead a team with Maintenance Connection from support before making the jump over to marketing in terms of a product marketing manager. Try to take advantage of maybe some of my English degree skills there to get some of the creativity out. And through all that, I kind of found that that wasn't quite matching up all the way. And I kind of stumbled into sales engineering when we had some organizational changes and shifts in how the sales structure was brought out. So our current VP of sales said, "Hey, man, you've got all the skills here. I need a sales engineer." And I was like, "Well, what in the world is that?" So he kind of explained, kind of walked through, hey, it's predominantly the person responsible for assisting sales teams. We all know what that is with the SE life. So with that, I came over. And so after I got kind of organized and what I thought was a good cadence for demoing, which was wrecked time and time again, as I think we all run into finding new and better things. But I was really able to, with the purchase of our company by Accruent over the summer, kind of get my hands wet again in the greater marketing scheme of things, as being a product expert, if you will. And really familiar with how to run things such as webinars. Been doing that for years in the marketing sense, how to do and communicate with customers about new products that we're bringing out, or how to get the best out of new iterative updates. So all of that kind of merged into now where not only do I do demos, but I've helped facilitate the monthly kind of thought leadership webinars about our industry and how to leverage, and what to look for in terms of feature sets for products. We just got done with doing the whole new, iterative product launch. So we, did the webinar thing with, outlining the major features and, how to utilize them and who to talk to if you want to utilize them. So really it's an extension now of fine tuning my, what I learned to finally kind of put into a frame, if you will, and what that was. I've been doing it for years, but I just got to learn officially what that is and how to tell, show, tell, all of that fun stuff. Kind of makes that marketing side even better with that SE experience now.
I want to come back to tell, show, tell, and the framing of how things are done. But first, if we can talk about, you mentioned that your boss, or now boss, said that you have all the skills. Did he clarify what skills he was talking about?
Yeah, I think it was 2 main things. A was the product knowledge. Having spent now it's been what 6, 7, maybe 8 years. I lose track now with Maintenance Connection. You kind of absorb, especially in the positions I've been in, and kind of breathe the program. So that was a major check off the box for him. And then also is the communication skills. So he'd been able to see some of my abilities through in person, through kind of my communication with customers, at customer events, training kind of sort of situations, as well as some of the marketing stuff that I'd been doing as then really essentially the product marketing manager. And so the ability to frame and very specifically, but in a very simple manner, articulate what Maintenance Connection is, and to then get across the features and map those as benefits, and then also how to deploy those in the end was really the two biggest things he was looking at to help support. Really, at that point, the account executives who were a lot of them were new, so there was a lot of learning on the fly for them. So being able to come on and help support the sales cycle in that way was huge off the bat for him.
You mentioned that you did like your undergrad in English, like literature, or
yeah, English literature. So oddly enough, it was early British literature, so it really didn't have any way to translate into what we consider now technology. But my love for all things writing, creativity has really been a natural bridge, I would like to assume, at least, to kind of really take things a step further. I mean, we'll probably touch on this in a few about the decks and the framing and how to creatively do that, I should say. But to be able to just think.
And we're back. Sorry for the weekly technical glitch. So we were talking about you majoring in English before becoming an SE and marketing. So I'm kind of curious. How did you use?
So
go ahead.
Yeah, so back in the day when I was running through college. Hold on. I think we're still getting some. Cool. Back to the English portion.
Yes, we're back, and we're back again, I guess. Yeah, again, English literature. You studied that.
Yes. So back in college, I had the great and wild idea that I wanted to be a teacher. And English was always something that I loved. Whether, well, let's be honest, listening to books more or less now, but back then reading, just kind of exploring that more creative side and the creative freedoms and the lanes that writing, the actual written word provided, in my head at least, was awesome. And I quickly realized that at least teaching, at least the young youth level, was not something I was necessarily built for. But little did I know that some of that would actually translate to what I do now. So through the course of my winding career and now as at SE, I think it's really helped bolster what I do on a day-to-day basis. Not only the way I communicate, the way I'm able to script things out, at least for myself ahead of time, work through that, and the attention to detail. We're talking about, like, people always laugh at me for my Oxford comma obsessions and my periods. I mean, those are super important, and how I consider we communicate as a culture. So, and that flows well into what I do on a day-to-day basis.
All right. And so how would a gentleman like yourself with an English literature degree get a job in support for a tech company?
Yeah, that's a great question. So at the time I had been working with Apple as a Genius admin, so behind their Genius bar, doing that tech thing. And so troubleshooting had been ingrained in me from, when I started working at Best Buy at Geek Squad in college, and kind of just traveling through that aspect. So the troubleshooting aspect was there. But the whole idea of going remote with Maintenance Connection was new. I'd never not worked in a store or an office. Thankfully, through the interview process, the ability to kind of communicate how to troubleshoot, or at least how I thought at that time to troubleshoot, as that always seems to be changing and always has changed, was something that was second nature and still is. You always want to fix whatever you can when it's presented to you. So I think through that interview process, I was very, very lucky to actually interview with my longtime friend and my main boss from the support side of things, and then he really helped to shape me even further. So shout out to Ken Shampoo out there. But I think that whole ability to jump in and just get in the door, I felt extremely blessed and lucky to land with a company that I knew was smaller at that time. I think it was employee number 35. And now, I'm part of a company that's 1,200 and growing easily. So it's a pretty cool thing to see looking back. But I think the troubleshooting thing, going back just to how to properly actively listen, I should say, and then communicate that in both words and actions quickly and reactively, really was what helped me to grab the job initially.
So basically, you started in a startup. That was your
it was around, I would say, probably for 8 to 10 years. So technically, at that size, at the rate that growth was happening, I would still consider that absolutely a startup, and got to hold on through 7 years of growth and changes, and now we're here. So it's been a really great experience. Especially, I've always wanted to be a part of that kind of culture. But with a family, wife and a kid, and living in Silicon Valley is just not financially feasible for most of America. So this is like the greatest thing next to that for me.
All right. So you're a startup in a feasible location, and you studied English literature, and now you're an SE.
Now I'm an SE. Yeah.
Not really a career path anyone could imagine for an SE, but that's good. That means you can use pretty much any skill. Like you learned English, which is going to help you. I'm sure it does help you a lot trying to articulate, which you already mentioned.
Yeah, absolutely. Between emails back and forth, all the way to helping still write blog posts and white papers to this day for our teams. It's become an unintentionally awesome background to have for sure.
All right, so you mentioned that you do framing and tell, show, tell. And I think that's going to be the majority of our discussion today, hopefully. So can you explain framing as the way you mean it, and what tell, show, tell is?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think in order to kind of understand how I got there, we'll rewind things, kind of my experiences, how I didn't even know really honestly what that is. I did it kind of naturally. And so that really started with, starting to do webinars and for product-based stuff. And so that started 3-4 years ago. We were doing that, where I would say, okay, as I'm a young kid, kind of inexperienced in my opinion, in terms of how to do these webinars, I started researching on the web, and I didn't get too much into the psyche of, and we'll touch on it later about, how to keep people's attention. But really, I knew that in order to effectively communicate, I need to set what I like to use as a roadmap. And that basically just told people, hey, here's what to expect. And really, I took a 10-month, 11-month job in between my two times with Maintenance Connection now as a product marketing manager with another IT service management platform software company, and they wanted to have their product pitch. So I was responsible for doing not only the content, but the product pitch at the end. I thought, you know what, well, this is, it's not my bread and butter. I'm not a sales guy by default. So I was trying to figure out a way to make it feel natural for me. And that's where my roadmap came in. So I could tell people what to expect. I say, hey, here's the content, here's the major pieces, here's the time that you're going to be expected to hear this. And then at the very end, we're going to round that out with so and so and so and so. So I started to develop this kind of high level, albeit very loose idea of what framing was and what roadmaps were and how to basically show, tell, show. And as we fast forward through the years, I kind of start to refine these things. I start to get, my title slides ahead of each section. Not knowing what I was doing was actually a professional kind of process for what would eventually become sales engineers to me, as I still had no idea what this was at that time. So we'll fast forward to about end of December last year. And that's when, our VP of sales brought me on board officially as a sales engineer, and I started cutting my teeth in the demo process. So I was able to apply some of those webinar techniques that I've been using already immediately. But I wasn't using slide decks. I wasn't using any of that. I just jumped right into the product, no official framing per se. I wasn't sure kind of with myself, like how to do it. Like, how does it feel natural? It's going to feel like hokey and kind of silly using a slide deck in combination with trying to show the product. It just kind of, I wanted to avoid that overly salesy vibe, because, I'm the technical trusted resource for our customers and for prospective customers, whereas the sales guys got to handle the sales side of things. So as we go forward, I start to notice that things just aren't feeling as fluid as I would want them to be. I was getting a lot of questions, interruptions. Not that that's a bad thing. I always encourage interactivity, but I was finding it to the point where I was having a really hard time getting through the content that I needed to get through in the allotted amount of time, whether it be an hour or an hour and a half, which is usually about our max for our team for what we need to get through. So I started to think about how I was communicating and how I was doing things. And I was starting to put the pieces together in terms of, I would have started off slow with one intro frame or slide deck frame, if you will, or a slide that just gave the outline. And I found that if I could do that, maybe I could help control the narrative of where we went. A lot of the times I would find people would be jumping all over the place. Even though we were in the middle of one section, they'd be asking questions that are really honestly relative to their needs. As a lot of times we'd have multiple groups that have different interests and different needs for our software across an organization. So that's when, thankfully, I started to get the idea more and more. We were purchased by our larger company in the summer, and I got exposure to the greater part of, I think, 30 or 35 additional sales engineers within the greater organization of Accruent. And that kind of really sped me up in terms of my evolution as a sales engineer. So they had gone through this training called Demo to Win. I'm sure as an SE everywhere, you've at least heard of that at some given point. And starting to get exposed to the idea of these frames, or really scenes, if you're in the Demo to Win nomenclature there, and really the idea. Yeah.
Sorry, quick question. Just when you talk about framing and roadmap, in my mind, when you say roadmap, it means like what features come up in the next release or something like that. But in your sense, are you talking about like the agenda slide?
So absolutely. So you got it right. So when I say roadmap, I really mean agenda. And the reason why I use agenda, and this is getting more into how nitpicky I get with the psyche of words and how they affect people. I found that if I used agenda, maybe this is in my own head though, is that they would think and kind of automatically shut down and thinking about, oh, we're in a class, we're going to get taught to, we're going to get spoken at. Whereas with roadmap, that in my mind encourages a little bit more air of kind of interactivity, questions subconsciously. So yeah, you've got it.
Okay. And so that, I guess that's the term you use in front of your customers. This is the roadmap for the presentation today or something like that?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm very intentional about a lot of those words that I use. So roadmap is absolutely one of them that actually, very much communicate out loud and say, hey, here's our roadmap. And then I walk us through what to expect and the order that we're going to do it. So my slide, actually, I built out, spent the last probably month and a half or 2 months building out a very specific slide for 4 different verticals of our customers or prospective customers that allow me to swap in icons based on the sections of our system, and really to very specifically curtail those presentations to each individual customer with relative ease.
And you mentioned that you have different, like in the same presentation, you might have different groups in there that need different things. Do you know what they need ahead of time, or do you just okay? How do you figure that out?
Yeah, so this is going on through kind of a ever evolving, expanding kind of relationship with my account executives, and I will make my disclaimer here is that I work with a fantastic team. And the relationship that we were able to continue to build, I should say, is paramount to delivering a successful demo. And so how did we do this? Well, we started off just by utilizing Salesforce. We use Salesforce as our platform for all of this, for our sales management and for ops and whatnot. But really, we go through a process where it's, it started off with, banting from our BDRs, really, just analyzing kind of the financial status for a new organization that wants to purchase, what they expect financially to spend, what their needs are. And that needs is specifically where I come into play. So we would have our team take notes. I would connect with our account executives before the demonstration. And we talk through, what we can expect through the demonstration, what big features are we going to be able to really highlight to outline the pain points that our organizations are that are coming to us. They obviously have, and I think that's something that our whole team is very cognizant of, is the questions section of things. But more importantly, it's the why are you looking for a new platform? What are your business pain points? Instead of really focusing on a story-driven narrative, and we can get into that, into how the slide deck is built for mine in a few seconds. But by changing that mentality alone, we did that probably at the start of the year for this year, 2018. It really opened up the narratives that we could create and kind of weave this visual representation of here's how we're solving your specific issues with our product. And that is really part of the evolution too of myself as a sales engineer. And I don't want to give away too much stuff as we go through kind of the process and the thought ideology behind the deck and how it's kind of evolved though.
All right. Well, that's fine. We'll see how deep we go. And but so it's the account manager that does the discovery and needs analysis. Then he gives you all that information, and
absolutely.
then you do the presentation.
Yeah, and I'm extremely blessed to work with some very, very sharp individuals, and we buy-in across the board from all of our sections of our teams, from business development representatives to AEs to the SEs as a whole.
Okay. All right, so you have all that information. You have your agenda. You actually have a pre-built deck that you can modify based on your customers. You mentioned earlier that you don't like actually doing slide decks. You'd go straight into the demo. Why has that changed right now? Did you find anything that works better, or?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I think I was finally, through tweaking and playing, I found my voice. And when I say I found my voice, and I found a way to do a slide deck in that, to me, did not feel kind of that cheesy sales pitch kind of vibe. And that I took time, I designed something that felt like myself. I was able to kind of create this extension of me as a whole in a slide deck form, and use that to really not so much as drive what I was doing, but really come alongside and augment kind of my efforts and my end results in my head, which was to deliver a lights out demonstration that left people with either no questions because I covered everything appropriately, or you got that every once in a while you'll get that, wow, that was great, or that was an amazing demo, which you give yourself a digital high five across the board to your team, and then one to yourself. But I think by becoming mentally able to accept that this wasn't something that was extremely beneficial in the end run, helped me to really kind of get over that mental roadblock and really start to mature and grow as a sales engineer.
I'm curious, when you say like it's not salesy anymore, what would make it less salesy or more salesy, the presentation?
I think it's the pitch to me. I think it's how you deliver and use the slide deck. So for me, I'm not putting any, or I guess I should say, a whole lot of product marketing kind of hits where you take hey, here's your main feature, and here's the 3 benefits that are very high level. They're not really tuned into exactly what the customer needs. So maybe, you'll get one of 3 of those feature benefits, but really the other one's missed. To me, that's I don't want to say uneducated, but that's just kind of throwing something against the wall and hoping that sticks. To me, that's kind of cheesy. So what I started doing, and this kind of goes back again to how we prepare, or how I prepare, and how our team prepares with our account executives. I was able to take specific business issues I knew that were 110% relevant to my audience, in that I can then use that to my advantage to then outline the features that I know would address those specific issues. So I'm providing 110% relevant content, both in the slide deck and in my presentations and my conversations and what I was saying, and mapping that to address, very, very real needs. So at the end of the day, the ultimate goal is for someone to say, okay, that was a great demo. Here's the purchase order, but that never happens. But you get the idea of where I'm saying, something is related in a fashion that it doesn't, it does matter for budgets, but in high level thinking, it doesn't matter what the cost is. You can work on that, but that you want this product because these features solve my pain points, and I can take that and I can use that in my organization. So that was kind of my ultimate flip, and kind of really where I started to get out of my comfort box, and I think really grow.
You're basically taking the effort to actually modify the presentation to your customer versus using the canned presentation that the marketing team provided.
Yeah, that's okay. Absolutely. So I take probably anywhere between 45 minutes to an hour before each demo to update my slide deck, my base slide deck, depending on which we're using. Then I'll add in things such as the initial splash slide is their logo with ours and the date, and then I update the roadmap appropriately to the sections I'm going to be covering. And we'll touch on the I'm sure on the tell, show.
Yeah.
In a few seconds. I always get that mixed up, but that is really where I honed in on providing the road, really extension of the roadmap for each what we call frame, or what I call frames, and then how to deliver kind of the summary after each section of that. But I don't want to give anything away too quick here.
All right, well let's get into the tell, show, tell.
Yeah,
I feel like you're excited about this.
Yeah, so, it's something that again kind of naturally always did to an extent, but not to the the way I do it now. So I got the chance to go to demo to win at Colorado Springs, Colorado a few weeks ago for a 2-day training. And if you're either new to sales engineering or want a refresher course, I honestly would highly recommend going out there. There's a lot of great stuff that introduces a lot of these key concepts, such as framing, or the ability to actively read a room or listen, if you will, or all the way down to how would you build a slide deck like this. So that's my endorsement of that. And I had an extension of this already. So what I really took away was the 2%, and we'll touch on the 2% ideology at the end here, Ramsey. But really going out there allowed me to get an idea and really formulate and formalize, I guess, this tell, show, tell kind of theory. So the idea behind this is that you tell people what you're going to talk about, you show them, and then you circle back and you tell them again. So it sounds easy at high level, but as I started to get kind of practice this, and this has been now officially probably a month to 2 months of me doing this, where I'm now finally feeling comfortable with this, is that within my deck, so once I got through my roadmap, so me telling the customers, hey, here's what I'm going to show you, I jumped into these different sections of our application. We have anywhere between 5 to 6 different parts, smaller parts albeit, that I'll show at any given demonstration. So each one of those would get its own section. So by outlining what I'm going to show them. So in this case, we'll say, preventive maintenance work schedules. I won't get too crazy on what it is, but essentially, you build your schedules. It creates automated time-based work for teams to complete and make sure that they're keeping their physical assets up and running ahead of those breakdowns. I'll say, hey, I'm going to show you how we build a time-based schedule. I'm going to show you how we build these pre-defined or pre-created task lists, and I'm going to show you how to attach your physical assets to this schedule to ultimately create a work order automatically. And so then after I show them that on a slide, I'll list those out. I'll go through, I'll show them, I'll take them through the demonstration section of the system. We'll go through, and usually questions will pop up here and there. But what I'm finding now is as I come back and finish that section, I come back to that slide, but then I have an additional slide that populates kind of a summary statement under each one of those sections to round that out and kind of put a final stamp on that, like, hey, we're done with this subject. Any questions? And I actually go through and say, hey, what questions do you have? So I'm very specific about that too, because I want interaction. And so usually most 9 times out of 10, I'll actually get the no, that was great. That's exactly what we wanted to see. I'll get a few questions about, specific, instances or specific ways that they could configure something. But by setting the stage with the telling, showing, and then telling, I was able to very easily and effectively show what I needed to show. I control the conversation and the flow of things. And I closed that door, not all the way, but closed the door in that section, allowing me to be more efficient from my standpoint in time management. And so with that in mind, some of the unintentional benefits that I didn't even think about. I found, and I tracked this, I found that on average, I've already been able to trim about 10 to 15 minutes total off of my demonstrations. So if you think about, most of these are an hour and a half long, just due to the nature of our software. Giving back people 15 minutes of time is invaluable, especially when you're running 9, 10, 12 demos a week like I am. You can imagine, like, that time back for me is invaluable, so I can imagine everyone else's. Also, you find that, generally speaking, taking a kind of a temperature of, if you will, the digital room, as I do most of mine over the web, I found that I ran into less opposition. I ran into less kind of, I don't want to say frustrated, but more like on the defense or on the offense even, questions. So we all know what those traps are like. I found that consistently able to help, I don't want to say control the narrative, but really help foster along exactly to where I wanted to set up the account executive at the end. So all of that obviously starts with the preparation, but the delivery and the utilization of that tell, show, tell method has had incredible impact on how I present and my effectiveness and efficiency, I should say, as well.
Can I give you an example, and you can critique what I'm saying?
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah, absolutely.
So let's say, just to make this simple, we're going to talk about a car, right? People want to buy a car, and the business cases they want to get from point A to point B.
Mm-hmm.
So you tell them, I'm going to show you how to use the car to get from, or how to go from point A to point B using this car. And then you get in the car and then you drive it. So the telling is, I'm telling you I'm going to do this.
Yep.
And then show is actually getting in the car and driving to point B. And then go ahead.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, no, you've got it.
And then getting out of the car, you tell them, hey, I got to point B. But do you also include, like, you just got to point B in this amount of time, you didn't waste a day waiting for a bus, or you didn't waste a lot of gas? Do you get into the business case of what happens once you get to point B?
Yeah, that's a great point. So this ties for me back to my audience, and who I know I'm talking to. So we work with a wider range of musicians, all the way from your HVAC technicians all the way up to your C-level team. And so it starts with knowing your audience. But we'll say, using the car generalization here. So hey, you need to get here. So we're going to do that by using and driving this car. Specifically, I'm going to show you how to use the steering wheel. I'm going to show you how to use the gas and how to use the brake. And we're going to do that, and we're going to drive to this destination. So at that point, you hop in, you show them actions, drive, and using the steering wheel, using the brake, hopefully at least, and you're using the gas pedal. Maybe you throw in a wow moment, that kind of where you turn on the radio and you feel the subs kicking. It's kind of like that cherry on top of the tell Sunday, a show Sunday, if you will. But then you get to your point, and then as you get out of the car, you say, hey, we got to our point exactly how I expected us and wanted us to see. And here's how we use that. We use the steering wheel to effectively navigate and not run into cars. We use the gas to get us there, to move us. And we use the brake to avoid any kind of issues by running into things or stopping at stoplights. And we even got some great tunes in the midst to keep our moods up. We are here now. And so what do you think? Any questions? What questions do you have? So absolutely mapping the benefits at the tail end of that second tell is going to be crucial to success and really landing what could be the world's greatest demonstration. But if you can't map that back, audibly speaking, to business case needs, then it might have been all for naught.
All right. Can I challenge you on 2 points? And we have this conversation. One, a wow thing in a car would be a handbrake turn, not turning on the music.
Yeah, if you're into the Fast and Furious scene, absolutely. I have a Hyundai, so I think if I did that, it would probably fall apart.
Yeah, well, now they have those electric handbrakes, so it doesn't even work anymore. All right.
Oh, I know. No fun.
I just beat myself on the first challenge. The second challenge. So I've been taught, and maybe that's because I have a different type of product than yours, is that not to show how to do something, just show them the end result. Mainly because doing something usually takes a good hour or so. And that's more considered like training than it is considered a demo. Is that something you see in your aspect as well?
So I think you're absolutely right, nailed on the head. It's going to be different for each software title or each person and where they work. So for our specific title, people think and this is where we get more into the creative narrative building thing. So I'll actually, think about a story. So we work a lot of manufacturing organizations, and within that, you have a whole range of issues from facilities maintenance, HVAC issues, air conditioning going out, all the way to like the manufacturing floor with extruders and all that heavy equipment. So I start off everything with a story base, and we kind of use that, and I use that story narrative as I go through and showing people the process of making, say, a work order or a work request to get, against a, whatever, and we'll follow that narrative all the way through. So effectively, I am showing how to do something, but I'm doing it in a manner that isn't what we call is a crime here on our team, is going through every single field, or going through and saying, now we're doing this, now we're doing that. So I'm actually doing the process. I'm showing them how to do it while not actually talking about what I'm doing on the screen, to give them kind of that feel for how the system works, how it flows, how to do something, and effectively how do they want to do something, by providing a very much business story, if you will.
All right. I want to clarify something. You are not an affiliate for the 2Win company, right? You just took the course.
No. Yeah, I took the course, and I was able to really grasp it. I mean, it just makes sense, in all honesty. And there's no affiliates, no paid here. This is completely honest opinion from my end.
All right, that's perfect. I just wanted people to know that you're not making anything out of that. You genuinely loved what you learned there, and you're advising people to go and register if they can. Yeah,
absolutely. And I think the thing is, I went in not knowing what to expect. From that, we'll take a little sidebar here. And honestly, I thought, hey, how much more could I learn, honestly, about public speaking, about how to demonstrate? And I came out, I tried to go in, I went in with the idea, hey, if I can grab one major thing that I could take to enhance my job and how I do my job, then it's a win. I came up with a couple of things, and the biggest thing, you heard me mention this maybe earlier, is the 2% ideology here. And this is the biggest thing that's really, really resonated, is that how can I be 2% better than my competition? And my competition could be, healthily my teammates. It could be my competitors, which is more often than not. How am I 2% better than today than they are? And that is really where that slide deck base kind of was birthed, making things an extension of, not some boring PowerPoint, but really took the time to quote unquote design a PowerPoint slide deck that I think was visually appealing, but effectively communicated. It was focusing on the words that I use. So I, went and got some different books through Audible and listened to how to say things or how to use words to positively influence a conversation. Changing the way I thought about that. So instead of saying, what questions do you, or, saying, hey, do you have any questions, close-ended, you change that to, hey, what questions do you have about this? Kind of inviting that conversation. The preparation too, we started installing 15-minute, what I like to call op-insight meetings with our AEs to officially lock down 24 to 48 hours before the actual demo, to connect, talk this through in an official stance, make sure we have any kind of possible red flags or yellow flags that were brought up that maybe our product didn't do or was really a hit with our competition that they wanted to see. Make sure we outline those and how to effectively navigate through and around those effectively. So that alone was worth its weight in gold for me to really think and critically about that. And obviously, they have that book too, that if you're someone quite on board with kind of some of my experiences, go read the book. And then really also the biggest thing too is the experience and the exposure to other sales engineers, that, we can do that digitally, like you and I, Ramsey, have done. But it's a whole nother thing when you're a room of 15 to 20 sales engineers from different organizations across, the greater North Americas. And you get to see how people do things. You get to see other viewpoints and insights. Not everyone has the ability to have a team of 35 sales engineers on a whole like I do. And so that too is a great aspect. And I don't know if there's any kind of sales engineer, expos or conferences, Ramsey, you might know. But that also too, if that is an outlet, I would highly recommend either getting involved or someone create that.
All right. Okay, I'm on it. What you just said is very important, and I want to summarize, and not just what you ended with. It's the 2% thing.
Yeah.
So I want to clarify I want to put words in your mouth, and feel free to correct me. You are 2% better today because, one, you were purposeful about how you went around preparing for a demo and working on your presentation by reading books and doing research. And two, by setting up a process that you follow with your account managers to make sure that you have everything you need to do the demo properly. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that's perfect. And I think I don't do it daily yet, not quite there, but I do sit down and think every Monday morning as I work remotely. So as I quote unquote scroll into my office or basically my bedroom right now, what am I going to do that's different that I didn't do last week, and that will at some point during the week get say, hey, I really like that new thing that you're doing. The slide deck was the first big one. The way I verbally communicate was another big one. That was a little more unnoticed, and I expected that. The next thing is to figure out how do I effectively use my webcam on demos, maybe at the front and the tail end of my demos to put a face to my voice. I think, I'm sure you'll see studies show that people who are, able to see someone's voice are we'll say 1,000% more likely to listen. I don't know, that's made up, but we get the idea that I know for me, if I can, if I could put the voice to a face, I'm going to be more apt and more engaged and more probably less combative if I'm maybe in a position I don't want to be from trying to find a new software title. So these are all the things that go in my crazy head, and I think I'll continue to fine tune this process. As 2% better is never going to end, which is the great thing too. I mean, you'll always be looking for new ways to change and grow from that aspect. But you nailed it.
I know you and I wanted to talk about a little bit about marketing through LinkedIn and that sort of thing, but I feel like what you've talked about today is like so important, and I think we should stick with what we just talked about today. Is there anything you want to add about, like, any more tips or tricks that you want to add about presenting and demoing?
Yeah, it's I think the willingness to be okay, knowing that you're going to fail. Honestly, that was my biggest thing. You're going to find that you're really good at certain parts of your presentation. You're going to find that you're maybe lacking. I know for me, my slide deck experience and kind of the evolution was a big way for me to check off that box of my proposed weakness and really evolve into what's become one of my strengths. I think being able to look in the mirror, whether you actually want to look in the mirror and present, or otherwise, I think the ability to control your facial expressions too, if we're thinking about the presentation as a whole at 2%, your voice does reflect in your facial expressions. I know when I get frustrated, I got to be very intentional and careful that doesn't reflect in my voice, as there's always times that happens. You're going to get those repeat questions 5 times over where you're like, oh my goodness, okay guys, let me see how I can effectively communicate this a little bit better. So just the preparation piece is my opinion, possibly from what I've seen, a little bit more of the underrated aspect, maybe less attention focused on from that. And then really just have fun, like be okay with being yourself, obviously to a business extent, but I let my personality shine through as much as I can. Whether that's, I demo we have a mobile app, so I mirror my screen with Reflector. But by doing that, it also opens me up to the possibility of notifications popping up, phone calls. I've turned my notifications off, but I can't turn my phone calls off. So I do give my disclaimer of, hey, you know what, my wife will call at any given point, so I apologize. But then I map that. But that is expected to show you how this functions in real life. And I always get a chuckle at least once a day out of that. It's just little things like that show people that you're human, that you're not some kind of crazy robot that's technically skilled and devoid of any personality. So that aspect is extremely underrated, in my opinion, as well. You can always teach technical skills. You can teach someone how to show something, but I always like to say you can't coach that personality. And personality is what makes us all unique. So really embrace that.
Can I give a small suggestion, which may be completely stupid and just popped in my head?
Yeah, absolutely.
When you're doing the Reflector, when you're showing your phone, you can actually start the conversation by saying, like you do, that my wife can call at any point. If she does, you guys can vote on whether I should take the call in front of everybody.
Even better. We'll give a call roulette on that. That's perfect.
Yeah. It might be completely stupid, but it's a small thing, but these are the type of things that we think about before going into a demo. If something bad happens, how are we going to get past that. We prepare for the worst and hope for the best. And,
no, you got it. And that's probably a whole nother conversation we can go on what happens when things do go haywire, because they do. Whether that be your environment going, AWOL on you and just freezing, or if you have computer issues, or if you have that disruptive individual in the room who they have nothing better to do but then to just jump in and ask the questions that they know they're going to get the answers that they want to hear, but their teams. That's a whole other thing where I'm still getting comfortable with either, the what we call is the pregnant pause, where you ask a question, you just let it hang, and you let it hang, and you let it hang until you get your answer that you want, or how to properly navigate around a combative question, if you will. So, those are all great points.
All right, maybe we should do another session about that. I feel like you're up to it, so I won't put you on the spot to answer, but we'll see. All right, this has been perfect. I think it's time to move on to the not so fire round. And if you've listened to the show before, then you possibly know what's coming up. We'll start off.
Yeah.
You have? Okay, perfect. I don't know why I'm surprised you already told me that.
Oh yeah.
All right. So, other than a notebook and a pen, what is an essential tool that an SE should be using?
Oh man. I'm trying to think back from my experiences, because I started with a pen and paper every single demo. I got a little bit better by moving digital. I started using my iPad and the Apple Pen to take notes, and I think. But what I've eventually found, and what for my workflow works best, is you got to have a second monitor. I don't care if it's a CRT or the world's biggest LED, but having that second monitor has been life-changing for me. And so, kind of to give you an idea of my workflow, I use, I think it was just a 27-inch LED monitor. I use that as my primary presentation monitor. So I have my application, I have my slide deck that I jump to and from different, I have a Mac, so I can do my different desktops very easily. Then on my actual laptop, I've got my digital notes and Salesforce on one desktop. I've got my Outlook calendar or my Outlook notes on the next desktop. And also, I always have my chat window configured to where notifications don't pop up, so I can communicate with the account executive as we're going through to kind of navigate any kind of sticky situations that might pop up, or get any quick, footed insights, or how we want to change the flow. So having that second monitor is absolutely crucial for me, at least, and that's the one thing that if you don't have, you need, in my opinion.
All right. Sometimes you don't have the luxury, especially if you do demos mostly from digitally, then yes, I find that very useful because I can have all my notes. But if I'm on site,
I think pen and paper is no doubt the way to go. And so there's two reasons why. A, it allows you to capture what's being said in the room. B, it shows the people that are there that you're basically your captive audience, that you are there. You're 100% involved, and you are actively listening and then taking down those notes. It means a lot to individuals. I know for me specifically, don't use your phone if you can avoid it. Don't use an iPad. Don't use anything digital. By using that physical pen and paper, it really displays again, coming back to that 2%, that mentality of that you're there, you're present. What they're saying, communicating to you is extremely important, and you are then conveying that by just simply writing that down. You don't even have to say, look at my notepad, but by having that there in person, it's something that honestly it's been passed down from my boss, my VP of sales, all the way down through our entire organization. We know if you're in an on-site meeting, you have a pen and paper, or you're getting the boot.
Okay, well that's strict, but I like it. So the next question: books or resources that every SE should read. You mentioned that people should get the book, but you didn't say the name. Can you let me know what the name is? I don't know what one.
Yeah, it's the Demo to Win book, and I don't have it on my desk. I have it over my bookshelf, but I do have a couple other ones that I've have in my Audible queue that I'll outline. So the first one is Made to Stick, and so what that is, it's more of a salesy book, but it's the idea of how to or actually marketing and sales, but it's the idea of how to create an effective story. Our SE team is going through it now, chapter by chapter each week with what we call our book club. And so we're going through and discussing the key points, but really it's a great way to think about how to effectively be a storyteller. And that goes back to kind of where I said at the beginning, like I make a narrative and try to stick to that throughout my demonstration. It helps present a way to effectively communicate and entrench the benefits, the values, who you are as a company in people's brains. I think another one too, more into the marketing side of things, but The Purple Cow by Seth Godin is another great one from a marketing aspect, and really defining, if you're having trouble kind of outlining what your product's key market differentiators are. So your cherries on the top, kind of the radio or the e-brake that we talked about in the car demonstration, Ramsey.
Yeah.
That's going to help kind of think about, okay, here's maybe what I could highlight as an SE, whether it be, on the sly as you're doing some of the other main points or as a main point. So that's another big piece too. In terms of the vocally communicating, kind of how you say things and when you say them, the book Exactly What to Say by Phil Jones is another great resource. It's got about 30 different phrases that you can utilize in conversation. That's where I got my, mentally changing the closed-ended, hey, what questions do you, or, do you have any questions too? Hey, what questions do you have? That kind of thinking and ways to open up. And that really also touches on how to effectively navigate through some objections as well. That's a no-brainer for me on that too. So I think those three give you some good base for kind of expanding things out. And another thing that we're starting as a team, I think, coming up in January is Extreme Ownership.
That's an amazing book.
Yeah, so I got that in my Audible queue, and I'm super excited to go through that as a team, as a whole. So it's just a matter of taking ownership of things.
So
I know I like to get my head and nose into things that probably normally an SE wouldn't, but it's expanded it stretched me as an individual, but then really that does really at the end of the day kind of translate back to myself as a sales engineer and how I can better myself in that 2%.
All right, just a quick note about Extreme Ownership. The authors, or at least one of them, Jocko Willink, has his own podcast. And once you read the Extreme Ownership, if you like it, then you should definitely listen to the podcast. It's called Jocko Podcast. And I'll have a link to it in the show notes if you're interested. And so let me repeat them. Because you mentioned a few good books here. Demonstrate to Win, Made to Stick,
Yep,
The Purple Cow, Exactly What to Say, and Extreme Ownership, which you haven't read yet, but you will listen to. I will vouch for this book.
Yep.
All right, that's a couple months of reading. All right, last question. Oh, that's not the last question. That's the third question. Do you have any tips or tricks on time management and task organization?
Yeah, time management. I use my calendar on my Exchange calendar religiously. So what I do is if I am thinking about intentionality, kind of the key underlying thing of everything we're doing now today, is if I have a demo prep, I'm putting it on my calendar. If I have a meeting I'm taking, I'm putting it on my calendar with my team. I categorize them. So being intentional about where I spend my time has really helped me to be more effective. Also, when I'm in meetings or I'm maybe unclear at the end result, I know this is probably beating a dead horse with a lot we've heard, but really establishing why we're in a meeting. So, hey, what is our end result? What do we want to get out of today's meeting? Has really helped me to effectively manage demonstrations that maybe don't have the best insight, or perhaps are more of a discovery call. And then that allows me to say, okay, cool. We can set the expectations of what we're going to cover. Here's what I expect time-wise that to be. If we have any questions, we can answer those either at the end of our call today, or we can do that in a follow-up email. And by doing that, it leaves not so much an open-ended conversation that could last 8 hours. Not that, that's a lot of talking. Not that ever would happen, but then we can then effectively get back our time essentially by establishing how much time we're actually going to spend. That and framing, man. I feel like I'm beating a dead horse, but I'm a huge proponent now, obviously, of framing in demos. So I challenge you to do that. Try that to an extent, and I'm sure that I'll be more than happy to answer any questions about how or that can be deployed. Even if you ask nicely, I might even be able to hook it up with an example template for the deck that I use. But I think by doing that, you'll see a net gain of 10 to 15 minutes, and I'm going to go ahead and say that's science, even though there's no scientific backup on that. But you'll gain time back on your demos, I promise you. So that's my time management kind of spiel.
Have you read the book, The One Thing?
No, not yet.
Okay. That's all about what you're talking about time blocking. Time block everything.
Yeah.
Time block the most important things to you so you can get the job done.
I think if I had read that book a while ago, it would have saved me a lot of heartache. So my time blocking has come because of necessity, not because of specific strategy.
Okay. Well, yeah. If you don't block your time, people will block it for you.
Exactly.
All right. Last question. What is the best advice you have received in your career?
You know what? I've gotten a lot of good advice and a lot of things that have helped me mature as an individual, both in my personal and business life. I used to love off the cuff takes, hot takes as we like to refer to it, but I found as I got older that wasn't necessarily the smartest thing to do. So that was one of the biggest things in my mid to late 20s is that the ability to take something at face value and then constructively think of that, not just blurt out what's the first thing in my mind, and really clarifying what was meant by what was stated by the other individual, whether that be a question that maybe I didn't understand or I took the wrong way, or just clarifying a statement in general, really helped me to, I don't want to say become more of a patient individual, but more of an understanding, more of an empathetic individual, as empathy is a huge part, of being SE. You have to be able to empathize with every single person that you come into contact with in terms of your audience, where they're coming from, their frustrations, how maybe if those barbed questions aren't at you, it's not because you're doing an awful job or they hate you, it's because they're so fed up with the way things are that the pain of staying the same has started to outweigh the pain of change, and that's something that's really interesting to me. So that whole aspect of that more of emotional IQ really shaped and defined my late 20s and now into my early 30s. Now the most recent advice for me that I've gotten is from our chief marketing officer. I was asking her, hey, what are some of the things that I could do to really kind of ramp up myself individually speaking? How can I make myself better? How can I prepare for my next steps, whatever that looks like? I think the one thing she said was be true, be yourself, but then also don't be afraid to take on those projects that no one wants. And so that can look like a million different things for a million different people. For me, it meant that I got my nose, stuck very firmly entrenched in a product integration between another sister product and ourselves. And it's not normally what I would do as an SE or even as a marketing team member, but it allowed me to open up lanes of communication. It allowed me to have a better understanding of how we could essentially what we call cross-selling for our sales team. I could then take that back and communicate and coach our sales team on how to do that. So unintentionally, it opened up all of these extra benefits for myself, and really the end result at the end of the day is for my team to make us more efficient, make us more profitable as a sales team, and deliver more victories at the end of the day.
All right. That's perfect. And this is how we're going to end our show.
Perfect.
Thank you, Adam, for coming on, and hope everybody in the family feels better soon.
Sweet. Thanks so much, Ramsey. I hope that the snow doesn't keep you too cold, and I'll be happy to join anytime you want.
We'll do. All right, man. We'll set it up.
All right. Have a good one.
You too. Well, this was fun. This was actually the first interview where we talked about presentations at all, and I feel like I can learn so much from Adam about presenting and mainly just speaking English because, well, English literature. And the way he talks, he presents stuff in such a way that is interesting for customers. It was interesting listening to him talk today. And it was a fun conversation, so thank you, Adam, for coming on. And for all you folks listening, if you enjoyed the show, I hope you enjoyed the show. I hope you got something out of it. And when we were doing this discussion with Adam, I realized that this would have been so much better if you were able to see what he was talking about. At least if I was able to see what he was talking about. So Adam actually agreed to co-host a webinar with me on December 22nd of the year 2018. So if you're in 2019, you're out of luck. But in the December 22nd, 2018, and he will be able to show you the exact format that he uses to create presentations that in the end he leaves the customer with no questions to ask about the product. So I would say that's a good presentation. The show notes for the interview can be found at wetheSalesEngineers.com/show32. You can register for this webinar or thereafter any webinar at wetheSalesEngineers.com/webinar. I hope to see many of you there. With that, this is Ramsey signing off.